Excluded from the most important meeting of Archer and Wilda, Everett Cole felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. Among contracts, numbers, and decisions that affected lives, he found himself ignored. But fate, silent and precise, had other plans. A renowned investor wanted to hear from only one person, him. Everett Cole's watch read 7:28 in the morning when he adjusted his navy blue tie in the elevator mirror. His reflection revealed a 38-year-old man with small expression lines around his eyes, not from age, but from nights spent poring over contracts and spreadsheets. His dark blue Italian-cut suit contrasted with the black hardcover notebook he always carried, a habit he maintained since his early days at the small bank in Scranton. "Good morning, Mr. Cole," greeted the security guard on the 42nd floor of Archer and Wilda, one of the most imposing buildings on Wall Street. "Good morning, Marcus. How's your son?" "Has his asthma improved?" Everett asked, recalling the conversation they had the previous week. "Yes, sir. That doctor you recommended worked miracles. My wife sends her regards." Everett smiled. In a world where executives barely glanced at security guards, he made it a point to know every name, every story. It was a habit he brought from home. His father always said, "No one is too small to be noticed." Upon entering his office, Everett found an email from Peter Langston, the company's CEO, calling an urgent meeting for that morning. The subject was clear: Whitaker presentation, Meridian Healthcare Group acquisition. His heart raced. Elias Whitaker was not just any investor. He was a legend, an industrialist who turned companies on the brink of bankruptcy into market giants. As he reviewed the proposal documents, his phone vibrated. On the screen, the name Mom lit up like a beacon on a stormy morning. Everett always answered calls from Miriam Cole, no matter how busy he was. "Son, I just called to wish you a good day. I dreamed about you last night," she said, with that voice that always seemed to be smiling. "I hope it was a good dream," he replied, idly flipping through the term sheet for the deal. "I dreamed you were at a crossroads but chose the right path. Your father would be proud, you know." Everett closed his eyes for a moment. Thomas Cole had passed away 20 years ago, but his presence remained alive in the small gestures, in the daily choices. A man who believed that a handshake was worth more than any contract. "Thank you, Mom. Today is an important day." "Every day is important, son. It's what we do with them that determines who we are." After hanging up, Everett turned his attention to the documents. Something about the proposed structure for acquiring the Meridian Group was bothering him. The numbers made sense, the internal rate of return was exceptional, but the mechanisms to achieve it left his stomach in knots. The senior analyst, Lena Park, knocked on his door. At 32 years old and with a Harvard education, she was known for her sharp intelligence and critical eye. "Did you see the performance triggers?" she asked, without preamble, sitting in the chair in front of Everett. "I saw it, and I didn't like it. They're calling it operational improvement, but it's just a euphemism for mass layoffs." Lena lowered her voice. "If we close like this, the cost-cutting impacts beds and nursing. I've studied similar cases. Mortality increases by 4% when nurses are cut to increase margin." Everett flipped through his black notebook where he had made detailed notes throughout the week. He drew a line connecting 2 points. "I'll suggest protective covenants. Minimum DSCR, cap on staff reduction in nursing tied to clinical metrics, and a specific MAE clause for adverse events. Peter will hate it. That reduces the IRR by almost 1 percentage point. 1 percentage point that's worth lives," Everett concluded, closing the notebook. That same afternoon, he sent a detailed email to the structuring team with a copy to Peter Langston, suggesting the changes. The response came almost instantly: revise the language, no sentimentality, focus on the return. The next morning, the 42nd floor was buzzing with activity. The main meeting room, with its panoramic view of the Hudson, was prepared to receive Elias Whitaker. Executives adjusted their ties, assistants distributed personalized folders, and the nervousness hung in the air like expensive perfume. Everett arrived 20 minutes early, his black notebook under his arm. In the antechamber, he found a group already gathered: Trent Barker, the head trader known for his aggressiveness; Julia Monroe, relationship advisor with a natural talent for commercial conquests, along with several directors rarely seen outside their ivory towers. Peter Langston entered, impeccable in his Italian suit, exuding the confidence of someone who turns meetings into gladiator arenas. "Gentlemen, lady," he nodded to Lena, "today is not a day for hesitations. Whittaker wants to invest $2 billion in the acquisition. Our commission will be historic if we can structure with the current terms. His eyes scanned the room until they met Everett's. Cole, he called, nodding for him to come closer. In the hallway, away from the other's ears, Peter lowered his voice. I saw your email. I understand your concern, but today is not the day for complications. Leave the sentimentality for after we close the deal. It's not sentimentality, Peter. It's risk mitigation. If we cut 30% of the nursing staff, we'll have serious problems in less than a year. That's a problem for the incoming administration. Our job is to close the deal with the highest possible return. Before Everett could respond, the assistant announced, Mr. Langston, Mr. Whittaker has arrived. Peter adjusted his posture like an actor about to go on stage. We are ready, he said, and as Everett took a step toward the room, the blow came. Cole, not today, said Peter without looking up. We need someone who knows how to sell, not someone who wants to stall the deal. The corridor seemed to shrink. The door closed like a verdict, leaving Everett alone with his own shadow reflected in the frosted glass, a banker without a room. His phone vibrated. Miriam, son, God opens doors we can't even imagine. How's your day? He typed. Just starting. He didn't have the courage to say that morning. The door had closed from the inside. Everett felt the weight of that moment. It wasn't just a meeting, it was the symbol of a bigger choice. In 15 years of his career, he had risen from an intern to vice president, lost an engagement with Lauren who couldn't bear his 80-hour work weeks, and now he was there, excluded from a table for defending what he believed was right. He walked to the service stairs away from curious glances. The yellow lights made the environment less cold, less corporate. He rested his forehead on the metallic railing and did something rarely seen on Wall Street. He prayed. God, I don't know how to get through this. If I'm right, guide my words. If I'm wrong, correct my path. But please don't let me sell what I can't defend while looking into my mother's eyes. He took a deep breath and returned to the hallway. In the anteroom, he noticed an unusual movement. The meeting room door opened, and a tall man with impeccably groomed white hair appeared next to Peter. It was Elias Whittaker. His eyes, a penetrating blue that seemed to see beyond appearances, scanned the anteroom, ignored the anxious suits, and stopped at Everett. You name? He asked with a voice that didn't need to rise to command. Everett Cole. Before coming up, I asked your team for a favor, the name of the dissident. He tilted his head slightly. I want to hear who disagreed with the triggers. Alone, now? A stunning silence fell over the room. Peter tried to intervene. Elias, we can continue with the agenda, and then Cole. Now, repeated the investor with the calm violence of someone who has chaired board meetings for decades. They entered a smaller room without the spectacular view of the Hudson. Just a table, 2 chairs, and a pitcher of water, the perfect setting for distraction-free conversations. Elias sat down, studying Everett with the intensity of someone deciphering codes. They say you complicate simple terms. I call it character. He pointed to the notebook. What do I not want to buy? Everett took a deep breath. It was the moment of truth. It's not what you're going to buy, it's how. The proposed structure rewards cuts like efficiency. In a hospital, it's not coffee, it's shifts. I proposed a minimum DSCR, a cap on nursing cuts linked to clinical indicators, and an MAE clause for patient health. He opened the notebook, showing arrows linking numbers to real people. Does it reduce returns? A little, but it reduces processes, headlines, and a cost that doesn't appear on a spreadsheet, the cost of sleeping. The wall clock made an almost imperceptible ticking. Elias studied the notes in silence, then pointed to the page. This handwriting, his voice dropped as if sharing a secret. 4 years ago, my daughter needed surgery in Philadelphia. The hospital from the group you want to buy almost ran out of supplies due to lack of conditions for the suppliers. I received a call from a district banker offering a bridge line without spotlight with a handwritten note. Do not burn the shift. He touched the arrows with his finger almost with reverence. I kept the copy. I recognized these arrows. Everett felt the world spin. He remembered the case. He had known about the girl, Emily Whittaker, only afterward in a trembling thank you letter sent by the girl's mother. I did what needed to be done. I like it when what needs to be done doesn't change when the room changes. Elias stood up with renewed energy. Bring your version to the table. And Peter, he said, already opening the door, the meeting only continues if the banker comes in. Returning to the main room was like entering an environment with altered gravity. The gazes that previously ignored him now followed Everett's every movement. Julia Monroe ventured. Mr. Whittaker, the competing funds. Let them compete for headlines. I buy results that last. He pointed to Everett's notebook. Include the covenants. Trent Barker, uncomfortable with the change of direction, provoked. You'll lock the upside. It locks the temptation to cut people to inflate a PowerPoint. Upside that depends on firing nurses is a cost disguised as courage. During the following hours, the room breathed a different air. Lena Park converted Everett's calculations into contract clauses. Julia realized that articulating the human side made the package more marketable. The team adjusted presentations, swapped graphics, and rewrote entire paragraphs. By the end of the afternoon, Elias was firm. Archer and Wilda would move forward if the term sheet reflected the Cole structure. That same night, an internal email circulated throughout the company. Everett Cole designated as deal captain of the Whitaker operation and promoted to executive director. It wasn't the pinnacle of his career, but it represented something more valuable. Real leadership and a defined moral compass. Days later, in the small Manhattan church he occasionally entered for moments of reflection, Everett closed his eyes and handed over his concerns in silent prayer. As he left, he found Miriam at the door, a surprise visit his mother had decided to make. I thought I needed to see my boy, she said, embracing him with that affection that even time couldn't dilute. They were walking towards the subway when the phone rang. It was Julia. Everett, the board approved the term sheet. And Mr. Whitaker wants something unusual, to create a social matching fund tied to our fee, governance with an independent committee, conflict of interest policy, if, she hesitated, her voice laden with emotion, asked for your mother to contribute honorarily, without voting in the selection of partner technical schools. He saw her history, educator. Everett stopped on the bustling sidewalk. The autumn wind lifted Miriam's gray hair. He looked at the starless Manhattan sky and smiled, tears rising like a tide. Mother. Remember when Dad used to say that God works in the details? I think the details have just found us. She squeezed his hand, her eyes reflecting the same sparkle Everett had inherited. Son, doors that open like this are not by chance, they are care. At the formal term sheet signing ceremony, another unexpected gesture. Peter Langston requested the floor, demonstrating a humility rarely seen in his 58 years of life. He took a deep breath, searching for the right words. I was wrong. I assumed that character drains returns. Today I learned that with the right people it sustains it. He extended his hand, a rare gesture of acknowledgement. Thank you for proving me wrong. Everett shook his hand without triumphalism, just with that inner peace that doesn't fit in Excel spreadsheets. At the end of that day, he returned to the service stairs, now not out of necessity, but out of habit. He rested his forehead on the same railing and prayed, this time without the previous urgency. Thank you, God, not for the titles, but for not letting me become someone my father wouldn't recognize. Use this job to heal more than balance sheets, and if I start to doubt again, remind me of this room, this prayer, and that door that opened from within. Outside, New York continued its incessant rhythm. Yellow taxis cut through the avenue like luminous arrows. In his pocket, the black notebook lay. On the inside cover, Miriam's phrase, written in pen years ago, "Pride is when the conscience sleeps peacefully." Everett smiled. For once, pride and conscience would take the same nap. And although no one said it out loud, everyone knew it wasn't a coincidence. It was the invisible mathematics of grace, aligning people and decisions, allowing a low-voiced banker to change the logic of a meeting, and with it, a business capable of touching lives that would never know his name. At the core, that was what the work was about. Not about who enters the meeting room first, but about who remains whole when the door closes. And when on the other side an investor asks, I want to speak with him, the right answer has already been written long before the invitation, in years of small loyalties, in the accounts only God measures, and in the stories of those who one day wake up again to breathe.